The Sunday roast was perfect as always. Mom had outdone herself with the prime rib, roasted vegetables, and her famous Yorkshire puddings. The dining room table seated 12 comfortably, and today we had the full family gathered. Mom, Dad, my younger brother James, his fiancée Melissa, Aunt Carol, Uncle Pete, and assorted cousins. I was cutting into my second helping when James stood up, tapping his wine glass with a fork. "Everyone, Melissa and I have an announcement," he said, grinning widely. Melissa stood beside him, her hand resting on his arm. She was elegant in a cream cashmere sweater, her engagement ring catching the chandelier light. "We've set the date," James continued. "June 15th next year, and we found the perfect venue." Mom clasped her hands together. "Oh, how wonderful. Where?" "The lake house," James said as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. "It's perfect. The dock for photos, the lawn for the ceremony, plenty of room for guests. We're thinking a tent reception on the south lawn." The room erupted in excited chatter. Aunt Carol was already asking about flowers. Dad was nodding approvingly. Uncle Pete raised his glass in a toast. I set down my fork carefully. "The lake house," I repeated quietly. "Yes," Melissa jumped in enthusiastically. "We drove up there last weekend to look around. It's absolutely perfect. The sunset over the water will be stunning for evening photos. We've already contacted 3 caterers who specialize in lakeside events." "You drove up last weekend," I said, still keeping my voice neutral. "We didn't think you'd mind," James said, waving his hand dismissively. "We know where Dad keeps the spare key. We just wanted to check out the space, take some measurements." "Measurements?" I echoed. Mom beamed. "This is perfect. A family wedding at the family lake house. It's so meaningful. We're planning for about 300 guests," Melissa continued, pulling out her phone to show photos. "We took these last weekend. Look, the ceremony here on the lawn, cocktail hour on the dock, reception tent here. The caterer said we'd need to rent additional bathrooms, but that's standard for outdoor weddings." She swiped through dozens of photos, angles of the house, the dock, the lawn, the interior rooms. "My house. My property. Photographed and measured without my knowledge. 300 guests," I said. "Well, we both have large families," James explained. "Plus, our friends, my colleagues from the firm, Melissa's sorority sisters. It adds up quickly." Dad nodded. "Good thing the lake house can accommodate such a large event. How much are you budgeting for the wedding?" "We're thinking $150,000, Melissa said. "Which is actually reasonable for 300 guests. The venue cost is zero since it's family property, so we can splurge on other elements. I'm envisioning white roses everywhere. A 12-piece band, premium open bar. Premium open bar for 300 people will run you $25,000 alone," Uncle Pete interjected. "Trust me, I've been to enough weddings." The conversation spiraled into wedding logistics. Cousin Sarah was volunteering to help with decorations. Aunt Carol knew a florist who could do bulk roses. Mom was already planning the rehearsal dinner menu. I picked up my wine glass and took a long drink. "Victoria, you're quiet," Mom said, finally noticing. "Aren't you excited for your brother's wedding? When did you say you drove up to the lake house?" I asked James. "Last Saturday," he said. "Gorgeous day for it. We spent about 4 hours there. Really got a feel for the space." "And you used Dad's spare key?" "Yeah, the one he keeps in his desk drawer," James confirmed. "Why? Is there a problem?" I set down my wine glass. "Did it occur to you to ask permission before entering someone's property?" James laughed. "It's the family lake house, Vic, don't be dramatic." "The family lake house," I repeated for the 3rd time. "Yes," Melissa said, a slight edge entering her voice. "James told me all about the summers you spent there as kids. It's such a special place for your family. That's why we want to get married there." "We spent summers at a lake house," I agreed. "When we were children." That lake house was sold in 2012. The buyers demolished it and built a modern mansion. That property has been off the market ever since. The table went quiet. "What are you talking about?" Dad asked, frowning. "The lake house from our childhood. The one on Miller's Cove. It was sold in 2012 when the property taxes became too expensive," I said calmly. Mom shook her head. "No, dear. We still have the lake house. We were just there for 4th of July. You were at a lake house for 4th of July, I corrected. But not the one from our childhood. James rolled his eyes. Semantics. We have access to a lake house. That's the one we're using for the wedding. 156, Lakeshore Road, Melissa added, consulting her phone. That's the address we gave the caterers. That's correct, I said. 156, Lakeshore Road. Purchased in December 2019 for $1.8 million. 3-bedroom main house, 2-bedroom guest cottage, 200 feet of private lakefront, boat dock, and 4 acres of land. Dad nodded. Right, our lake house? No, I said quietly. My lake house. The silence this time was absolute. Melissa laughed nervously. What? The property at 156, Lakeshore Road is registered in my name, I said. I purchased it 6 years ago. I own it. James set down his fork with a clatter. That's ridiculous. How could you possibly afford? The same way I afforded my downtown condo, I interrupted. The same way I afforded my car. The same way I paid for my entire graduate program without loans. I worked. I invested. I bought property. You're 32 years old, Uncle Pete said slowly. That house is currently appraised at $2.4 million. Yes, I'm aware, I finished. I pay the property taxes. Mom looked genuinely confused. Victoria, I don't understand. If you own the house, why have we been using it all these years? Because I let you, I said simply. I bought it specifically so the family would have a place to gather like the old lake house. I wanted to recreate those memories without telling anyone I owned it. James asked incredulously, you told us. I told you. I said multiple times. You didn't believe me. Dad shook his head firmly. No, I would remember if you'd said you owned a $2 million property. Christmas 2019, I said. I announced I just purchased a lake house and wanted to host the family there. You laughed and said I must have gotten a good deal on a timeshare. Mom's face went pale. I do remember that conversation. Easter 2020, I continued. I mentioned I was having the dock rebuilt and asked if anyone wanted specific features. James said I was wasting money on a rental property. James opened his mouth, then closed it. Thanksgiving 2021. I showed everyone the new kitchen renovation. Aunt Carol asked, who owns such a beautiful house? I said, I do. She assumed I meant I was house-sitting. Aunt Carol covered her mouth with her hand. At some point, I stopped trying to correct the assumption. You all wanted to believe the family somehow still owned a lake house. I let you believe it. This is insane, Melissa said, her voice rising. James, you told me this was your family's property. I thought it was, James said defensively. We've been going there for years. How was I supposed to know? By asking, I said simply. By confirming ownership before planning a 300-person wedding. Well, it doesn't matter anyway, Melissa said quickly. Your family? Of course you'll let us use it for the wedding. I took another sip of wine. No. James repeated, what do you mean no? I mean no. You cannot have your wedding at my house, I said calmly. You can't enter my property without permission. Photograph it without asking. Hire caterers for a venue you don't control, and then expect me to just go along with your plans. Victoria, be reasonable, Dad said. It's your brother's wedding. I'm being perfectly reasonable, I said. I'm saying no to an unauthorized use of my private property. Melissa's perfectly made-up face was turning red. We've already put down deposits. The caterer, the florist, the band. We told everyone the venue address. That was premature, I said. You're being petty, James snapped. This is my wedding. Our wedding. The most important day of our lives. Then you should have secured a venue properly, I said. Like normal people do with contracts and deposits and actual permission from the property owner. Mom reached across the table toward me. Sweetheart, please think about what you're doing. This is family. I am thinking about family, I said. I'm thinking about how my family has used my property for 6 years. Without once acknowledging I own it. Without thanking me for the expense. Without respecting the investment. We didn't know, Dad started. Because you didn't ask, I interrupted. You assumed. And now you want me to absorb a 300-person wedding because it's convenient for you. Uncle Pete cleared his throat. Victoria, to be fair, you did let everyone use the house freely. Can you blame James for thinking he could have his wedding there? Yes, I said flatly. I can blame him for entering my property without permission, planning an event without consulting me, and spending money on deposits for a venue he doesn't control. So, you're really saying no? Melissa said, her voice shaking. You're really going to ruin our wedding. I'm not ruining anything, I said. You ruined it yourself by making assumptions. James stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. This is bullshit, Victoria. You know it is. You're being vindictive because we didn't kiss your ass about owning a house. I don't need us kissing, I said calmly. I need respect. I need to be asked before my property is used. I need the basic courtesy of a conversation before someone plans a 300-person event at my home. Fine, James spat. Fine, we'll find another venue. Come on, Melissa. Melissa stood, grabbing her purse. I can't believe this. I cannot believe you're doing this to us. They left, James slamming the front door hard enough to rattle the windows. The remaining family members sat in uncomfortable silence. Finally, Aunt Carol spoke. Victoria, that was harsh. Was it? I asked. Was it harsh to say no when someone tried to commandeer my property without asking? It's not just property, Mom said quietly. It's family memories. It's the place where we gather. Surely that counts for something. It counts for 6 years of free access, I said. 6 years of hosting holidays, birthdays, summer weekends. 6 years of paying property taxes, insurance, maintenance, utilities. Do you know what the annual carrying cost is for that property? No one answered. $47,000, I said. Property taxes alone are $28,000 annually. Insurance is $8,500. Utilities average $6,200. Maintenance and repairs vary, but I budget $15,000 yearly. That's before any major renovations. Uncle Pete whistled low. That's substantial. So over 6 years, I've spent approximately $282,000 maintaining a property I've allowed the family to use freely. No rent, no usage fees, just open access whenever anyone wanted it. We didn't ask you to do that, Dad said. No, I agreed. You didn't. I did it because I love this family. Because I wanted us to have a gathering place. But apparently that generosity has been taken for granted to the point where my brother thinks he can plan a wedding there without even asking. Mom dabbed at her eyes with her napkin. What do you want from us, Victoria? An apology, I said. I want acknowledgement. I want you to see what I've actually done instead of what you assumed. I want basic respect for my property rights. Cousin Sarah, who'd been silent throughout, spoke up tentatively. For what it's worth, I had no idea you owned the house. I always thought it was like a family trust or something. Why didn't you ask? I said, not unkindly. In 6 years, why didn't anyone ask who owned it, who paid for it, who handled the paperwork and taxes and maintenance? Because we assumed it was your parents, Sarah admitted. It just seemed like the kind of thing they'd have. My parents sold their lake house in 2012 because they couldn't afford the property taxes, I said. But somehow everyone assumed they bought another $1 million property. The logic gap was finally apparent to everyone. Dad cleared his throat. I think we owe you an apology, Victoria. Several apologies. For not asking, for assuming, for taking advantage of your generosity. Thank you, I said quietly. But I still think you're being harsh with James, he added. This is his wedding. Can you make an exception? I set down my wine glass with more force than necessary. Dad, he entered my house without permission. He photographed every room. He took measurements. He hired vendors and gave them my address. He put down deposits. All without one single conversation with me. He didn't know. He should have known. He should have asked. That's basic respect. You don't plan a major event at someone else's property without asking. Mom flinched at my tone. I took a breath, steadying myself. I'm sorry for raising my voice, but I need you all to understand. This isn't about the wedding specifically. This is about a pattern of disrespect, a pattern of assumption, a pattern of taking my contributions for granted. What do you want us to do? Uncle Pete asked practically. How do we fix this? Start by acknowledging reality, I said. I own the lake house. I pay for the lake house. Access to the lake house is a privilege I grant, not a right you inherit. Okay, Mom said slowly. We acknowledge that. What else? Going forward, ask permission, I said. Want to spend a weekend there? Call me. Want to host a holiday? Check with me first. Want to bring guests? Let me know. Basic courtesy. That seems reasonable, Aunt Carol said. I'm sorry, Victoria. I really didn't realize. I should have asked. Thank you, I said. Dad was still frowning. And James's wedding is not happening at my house, I said firmly. That decision is final. Even if he apologizes. Even then. Mom pressed. Even then, I said. He's already hired vendors, set expectations with 300 guests, made deposits. The scale of presumption is too large. He needs to find an actual venue. Those deposit costs, Mom started, are his problem, I interrupted. Not mine. He made financial commitments for a venue he didn't control. That's poor planning. Silence fell again. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, glancing at the screen. A text from an unknown number. Hi, Miss Martinez. This is Christine from Elegant Events Catering. We spoke briefly last week about a potential June wedding at 156 Lakeshore Road. I'm following up to schedule our venue walkthrough. Are you available this Thursday at 2 p.m.? I showed the text to the table. This is Christine from one of the caterers Melissa hired. She wants to schedule a venue walkthrough. What will you tell her? Sarah asked. I typed quickly. Hi Christine, I'm the property owner. I was not consulted about this event and have not approved venue use. Please contact the client to inform them they need to secure a different location. Apologies for the confusion. I hit send and set the phone down. You really are saying no, Mom said quietly. I really am, I confirmed. Uncle Pete stood, starting to clear plates. Well, this dinner took a turn. Anyone want coffee? The mood shifted awkwardly to cleanup mode. People moved mechanically, clearing the table, washing dishes, avoiding eye contact. My phone buzzed again. This time, a call from James. I answered. Yes, he said, his voice tight with anger. A caterer just called me. Said you told her we can't use the venue. That's correct. You can't do this, Victoria. Please. We've already spent $8,000 on deposits. Then you've learned an expensive lesson about confirming venue access, I said. I'm your brother. Which is why I've let you use my house freely for 6 years, I said. But planning a wedding without asking crosses a line. We can pay you, he said desperately. Venue rental, whatever you think is fair. It's not about money, James. Then what is it about? Respect, I said simply. You entered my house without permission. You photographed my property. You made plans involving my home without one conversation with me. That's not respect. I didn't know you cared so much about my property rights. I care about basic courtesy. Yes, James. I care about those things. Please, he said. Melissa is crying. Her mother is furious. We've told everyone the venue. You'll have to untell them, I said. I'm sorry you're in this position, but you put yourself there. I hate you right now, he said quietly. That's your prerogative, I said. But my answer is still no. He hung up without saying goodbye. I returned to the dining room where the family was pretending to have normal conversation over coffee. James called, I said. He's upset. He offered to pay venue rental. Will you reconsider? Mom asked hopefully. No, I said. The issue isn't money. It's principle. Dad sighed heavily. You're really going to let this drive a wedge in the family? I'm not driving any wedge, I said. James drove it when he disrespected my property. I'm just maintaining boundaries. Boundaries. Dad repeated the word like it was foreign. We're family, Victoria. Family doesn't need boundaries. Family especially needs boundaries, I corrected. Healthy boundaries create healthy relationships. My phone rang again. This time an unfamiliar number. I answered cautiously. Miss Martinez, this is Andrea Thompson from Lakeside Events. I'm a wedding coordinator. Your brother's fiancé hired me to manage their June wedding at your property. I need to schedule a site visit to begin planning logistics. I put the call on speaker so the family could hear. Andrea, I'm the property owner. I was not consulted about this event and have not granted permission for its use. There was a pause. I'm sorry. I don't understand. The client provided the address and assured me they had full access to the venue. They do not, I said firmly. They have been using the property for family gatherings, but they do not have permission to host a 300-person wedding. Oh my God, Andrea said, her professional composure cracking. Are you telling me this venue isn't secured? Correct. We have contracts, deposits, we've blocked the date. Oh my God, she sounded genuinely panicked. Miss Martinez, I have to ask. Is there any possibility of negotiating access? We're happy to sign formal contracts, insurance waivers, whatever you need. No, I said. I'm not making my property available for this event. Can I ask why? If it's a liability concern, we can address that. If it's about compensation, it's about respect, I said. The clients didn't ask permission. That's not how you secure a venue. Andrea was silent for a moment. You're absolutely right. I'm so sorry. I should have verified ownership before proceeding. This is incredibly unprofessional. It's not your fault, I said. You trusted your client's representation. But yes, you should always verify venue access independently. Lesson learned, Andrea said grimly. I need to call my clients immediately. Thank you for your time, Miss Martinez. She hung up. The family stared at me. That's the third vendor, I said. How many more do you think they hired? Mom's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and winced. Melissa's mother just texted me, she said. She's very angry. I imagine so, I said. She's demanding we make you allow the wedding. Mom continued reading from her phone. She says her daughter is being traumatized by your selfishness. Traumatized? I repeated flatly. Her words, not mine, Mom said quickly. Victoria, is there really no way to compromise here? What compromise do you suggest? I asked. I allow a 300-person wedding at my house that I never approved? That's not a compromise. That's capitulation. Uncle Pete spoke up. What if James and Melissa apologized? Really apologized? Would you reconsider? I thought about it carefully. Honestly, at this point, no. They've already hired multiple vendors, set expectations with 300 guests, put down deposits. The wedding planning is too far advanced. Even if they apologized, they'd still need to find a new venue because June 15th is too soon to properly plan an event of that scale at my property. Too soon? Aunt Carol asked. It's 8 months away. For a 300-person wedding requiring tents, additional bathrooms, commercial catering, parking for that many cars, insurance, permits, I shook my head. I'd need at least a year to plan properly, to ensure my property is protected, to coordinate with vendors, to set up liability coverage. You've really thought this through, Sarah observed. I own a $2.4 million property, I said. I don't take risks with it lightly. My phone rang yet again. This time I recognized Melissa's number. I answered. Yes, you bitch, she hissed. You absolute, you're ruining my wedding. I'm not ruining anything, I said calmly. You never had permission to use my venue. James said the lake house was family property. James was wrong, I said. He should have verified before making plans. We've spent thousands of dollars. That's unfortunate, I said. But it's not my responsibility. You hired vendors for a venue you didn't control. Everyone knows the venue, she cried. We sent save the dates with the address. We have a wedding website with photos of the house. I closed my eyes briefly. You publicized my private address on a wedding website. It's a beautiful backdrop, she said defensively. The photos are gorgeous. Take them down, I said firmly. Immediately. That's my private property. You don't have permission to publish photos of it publicly. You can't tell me. I absolutely can, I interrupted. It's my property. Remove those photos today or I'll have my attorney send a cease and desist. You wouldn't, she breathed. Test me, I said coldly. Take down the photos. Remove my address from all your materials. Find a new venue. Stop telling people you're getting married at my house. I hate you, she said, echoing James's earlier words. I can't believe you're doing this to us. I'm not doing anything to you, I said. You did this to yourselves. She hung up abruptly. I looked at my family. She published photos of my house on a public wedding website with my address. Dad winced. That's not good. No, I agreed. It's not. That's a security issue. I'll need to contact my attorney tomorrow. Victoria, don't escalate this, Mom pleaded. They'll take down the photos. Don't bring lawyers into it. They brought lawyers into it when they publicized my private address, I said. I'm just responding appropriately. Cousin Sarah pulled out her phone. What's the wedding website? Melissa's phone number was still on my screen. I texted her, wedding website address. Now. She responded almost immediately with a URL. Sarah navigated to it, her eyes widening. Oh wow. There are at least 50 photos here. Full exterior shots, interior rooms, the dock, the lawn, aerial drone footage. Drone footage, I said sharply. They flew a drone over my property. Sarah nodded, turning her phone to show me. Professional quality aerial shots showed the full property layout, the neighboring houses, the entire shoreline. That's illegal, Uncle Pete said. You need a permit for commercial drone use and permission from the property owner. I added, which they didn't have. I pulled up my attorney's contact information, sent a quick text, need to discuss property rights issue. Unauthorized photography and publication of my private residence. Can we talk tomorrow? Her response came quickly, of course, 9 a.m. call. I confirmed and set down my phone. You're really calling your lawyer? Mom said faintly. My private address and detailed property photos are published on a public website, I said. That's a legitimate security concern. I need legal advice. Dad rubbed his temples. This has spiraled out of control. It spiraled the moment James and Melissa entered my property without permission, I corrected. Everything since then has been natural consequences. Aunt Carol stood. I think I should go. This has been a lot. Others started gathering their things, making excuses, avoiding eye contact. Within 10 minutes, only my parents and I remained. Mom sat heavily in her chair. Your brother is going to hate you. Probably, I agreed. But he'll hate me for enforcing reasonable boundaries. I can live with that. Can you? She asked. Can you really live with this kind of family division? Can you live with the alternative? I countered. Where I allow people to use my property however they want without respect, without permission, without acknowledgement. We're not people, Dad said. We're your family. Which should mean higher standards of respect, not lower, I said. We never meant to disrespect you. We genuinely didn't know you owned the house, Mom said quietly. Because you never asked, I said, for what felt like the 100th time in 6 years of using the property. You never once asked who owned it, who paid for it, who handled the logistics. You just assumed because it felt like it had always been there. Mom said, like the old lake house, it felt like family property. It felt convenient to believe that. It was easier than acknowledging your daughter owns a multi-million-dollar property at 32, I corrected gently. Dad's head snapped up. What's that supposed to mean? It means you've never asked about my career, I said. My investments, my income. You know I work in financial consulting. You know I own my condo downtown, but you've never asked for details. You've never wanted to know how successful I've actually become. Because it felt like bragging to ask, Mom said defensively. Or because you didn't want to confront that I've surpassed your expectations, I said quietly. That I've built wealth and success you didn't anticipate. That I didn't need your help or approval to do it. The words hung in the air. Is that what you think? Dad asked finally. That we're threatened by your success? I think you're more comfortable with the version of me that needs you, I said. The daughter who might need financial help, who might need advice, who might need parental guidance. The successful, independent version is harder to reconcile. Mom's eyes filled with tears. That's not fair. Maybe not, I said, but it's honest. When was the last time you asked about my work, my investments, my plans? They were silent. When was the last time you acknowledged what I've built? I pressed. The lake house isn't my only property. I own 3 rental properties downtown. My investment portfolio is worth $1.8 million. I clear $400,000 annually from my consulting work alone. When did we ever talk about any of that? You never brought it up, Dad said weakly. I tried, I said. Multiple times. You changed the subject. Talked about James's law firm, his cases, his achievements. I stopped trying to share mine. Mom wiped her eyes. I didn't realize we were doing that. I know, I said. That's the problem. You didn't realize. You didn't see. You didn't ask. We sat in heavy silence. Finally, Dad spoke. What do we do now? You support James in finding a new venue, I said. You stop pressuring me to change my mind. You start treating me like an adult who owns her own property and makes her own decisions. And the lake house? Mom asked. Going forward, I'll think about it, I said. Honestly, right now, I need space. I need to consult with my attorney about the website situation. I need to process all of this. Will you still let family use it? She pressed. I don't know, I admitted. This experience has shown me how little my generosity was valued. I need to decide if continuing that generosity is healthy for me. So, you might cut us off completely, Dad said bitterly. I might establish formal boundaries, I corrected. Rental agreements, usage contracts, the kind of protections any property owner would have. That's not cutting you off. That's protecting my investment. It feels like cutting us off, Mom said. Then maybe you should have thought about that before assuming you could do whatever you wanted with my property, I said, my patience finally wearing thin. Maybe you should have thought about it before James planned an entire wedding without asking. Maybe you should have thought about it before Melissa published photos of my house online. I stood. I'm going home. Thank you for dinner, Mom. It was delicious. Victoria, please, she started. I need space, I said firmly. We all need space. Let's talk in a few days. After emotions settle, I grabbed my purse and coat, heading for the door. We love you, Dad called after me. I paused at the doorway. I love you too. But love without respect isn't enough. It never was. I left, driving home to my downtown condo in silence. My phone buzzed continuously during the drive. Texts from James, Melissa, even Melissa's mother. I ignored them all. At home, I poured a glass of wine and sat on my balcony overlooking the city. Below me, traffic moved steadily through downtown streets. Around me, the lights of other high-rises twinkled in the darkness. I pulled up the wedding website Sarah had shown me, scrolled through the photos of my lake house, my property, my investment, published without permission. The venue section read, "We're so blessed to be getting married at the Martinez family lake house, a special place filled with memories and love. This beautiful waterfront property has been in the family for years and holds a special place in our hearts." I took a screenshot and emailed it to my attorney with a note, unauthorized use of my property for commercial purposes. Published without permission. Discuss tomorrow. Then I removed my brother's name from the authorized access list for the lake house security system. Changed the alarm codes. Made a note to have the locks changed. If they wanted to use my property again for anything, they'd have to ask. And after today, I wasn't sure what my answer would be. My phone rang. Mom again. I let it go to voicemail. Tomorrow, I'd deal with the legal issues. Tomorrow, I'd figure out what boundaries looked like going forward. Tomorrow, I'd start rebuilding my relationship with my family on my terms. Tonight, I just sat with my wine, looking out at the city I'd built my success in, and tried to decide if generosity without acknowledgement was generosity at all, or just enabling. The lights of the city didn't have any answers. But for the first time in 6 years, I'd stopped pretending that it was.